Can one verse change the course of a person's life? It did mine. In Luke 17:37, Jesus answered, "Where there is a dead body, there the vultures will gather." What does Luke 17:37 mean? Have you ever asked God that? I did, and in this video, I will share how God answered my prayer to understand it. You're listening to the Overcoming the Tribulation YouTube channel. My name is Annette Bell. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to read to you from the Bible I read growing up, NIV 84. I tell you, on that night, two people will be in one bed. One will be taken and the other left. Two women will be grinding grain together. One will be taken and the other left. Where, Lord? They asked. He replied, Where there is a dead body, there the vultures will gather. When I would read about one will be taken, I would think, the rapture. But then I'd get to verse 37 and I was like, what is that? It didn't make any sense. And I would just go on because I couldn't figure it out. I'd just go on to chapter 18. When I was 16 or 17, I looked at it deeply. I understood that the disciples were asking Jesus where the taken were taken. Because if two people are together and one is taken and the other is left, you know right where the one who's left is. What you want to know is where is the taken taken. So I had two concerns. The first was, why would dead bodies be left? Because it says, we will not all sleep, but we will all be changed. That's 1 Corinthians 15:51. The second question I had was, even if there were dead bodies left that we wouldn't need anymore, why would our bodies, the bodies of the saints, be eaten by birds? That sounds dishonorable. So I prayed earnestly for God to answer my question of what did Jesus mean when he said this? And he did. Within a week of praying, I saw a verse very similar to Luke 17:37 and Matthew 24:28. I looked at the context, which is verses 23 through 28, but I still didn't understand what it meant. But God gave me an idea to compare Luke 17 and Matthew 24 closely to see if anything would shed light on what he meant. And he answered me that way. I found it in the days of Noah. Luke 17, verses 26 and 27. Just as it was in the days of Noah, so also it will be in the days of the Son of Man. People were eating, drinking, marrying, and being given in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark. Then the flood came and destroyed them all. When you go to Matthew 24, starting in verse 37, as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. So those passages are saying the same thing. Jesus is talking about the people who were buying and selling, marrying and giving in marriage up until the day Noah entered the ark, and the flood came and they died. Then I kept reading in Matthew 24. That is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. Two men will be in the field, one will be taken and the other left. Two women will be grinding with the handmill, one will be taken and the other left. When I read, one will be taken, the other left, I thought, the rapture. And then I was like, no. Because the ones who the flood came and took them all away, it's really clear when you compare both chapters together, because in Luke it says the flood came and destroyed them all, and in Matthew the flood came and took them all away. It's so clear that he's talking about the wicked people who died, and he wouldn't change his subject to talking about righteous people being raptured. So the one taken are the ones who die. And then the verse made complete sense. It totally blew my mind. I was born again at 5 years old, and by that time I had already been taught pre-tribulation rapture in my church. And I believed it completely until this point. Then I began to doubt. When I was in youth group, we used to sing this song called I Wish We'd All Been Ready by Larry Norman. The message of the song was clear. The rapture will happen and everyone else will be left behind to face the tribulation. But the song was out of context. Now, when I understood that Luke 17:37 was about dead bodies, it made complete sense. Then I found in Revelation 19 that it talks about that. I'm going to read Revelation 19:17 through 18 and verse 21. Here's 17. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, who cried in a loud voice to all the birds flying in midair, "Come, gather together for the great supper of God, so that you may eat the flesh of kings, generals, and mighty men, of horses and their riders, and the flesh of all people, free and slave, small and great." Verse 21. The rest of them were killed with the sword that came out of the mouth of the rider on the horse, and all the birds gorged themselves on their flesh. I also found birds eating the flesh of men in Ezekiel 39. Verse 4. On the mountains of Israel you will fall, you and all your troops and the nations with you. I will give you as food to all kinds of carrion birds and to the wild animals. Then skipping up to verse 17. Son of man, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Call out to every kind of bird and all the wild animals. Assemble and come together from all around to the sacrifice I am preparing for you, the great sacrifice on the mountains of Israel. There you will eat flesh and drink blood. You will eat the flesh of mighty men and drink the blood of princes of the earth, as if they were rams and lambs, goats and bulls, all of them fattened animals from Bashan. At the sacrifice I am preparing for you, you will eat fat until you are glutted and drink blood until you are drunk. At my table you will eat your fill of horses and riders, mighty men and soldiers of every kind, declares the sovereign Lord. Now you might be saying, my version says eagles, not vultures, so eagles don't really eat carrion, but they do. In Job 39, one of the chapters where God talks about his animals, does the eagle soar at your command and build his nest on high? He dwells on a cliff and stays there at night. A rocky crag is his stronghold. From there he seeks out his food. His eyes detect it from afar. His young ones feast on blood, and where the slain are, there is he. So that last verse, it's verse 30, where the slain are, there is he. It shows that eagles eat carrion too. And it sounds very much like these other verses we've been looking at. So then going back to Matthew 24, starting in verse 23. At that time, if anyone says to you, "Look, here is the Christ," or "There he is," do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and miracles to deceive even the elect, if that were possible. See, I have told you ahead of time. So if anyone tells you, "There he is, out in the desert," do not go out. Or, "Here he is in the inner rooms," do not believe it. For as lightning that comes from the east is visible even in the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever there is a carcass, there the vultures will gather. So I saw that there's a contrast here between the fake comings of Jesus and the real coming of Jesus. Verse 27 and 28 are about his real coming. Verse 28 is basically telling us, if you don't see the carcasses of the slain being eaten by birds, it's not his real coming. So this is talking about his second coming, and it's after the tribulation. As I had suspected, I found in the Old Testament that for birds to eat the bodies of dead people is a curse. In 1 Kings 14:11, 16:4, and 17:24, it was applied to 3 wicked kings. So, when a passage I had associated with pre-tribulation rapture turned out not to be about a rapture at all, it caused me to doubt pre-tribulation rapture. I recall a fellow believer saying to me, Real scholars know that Matthew 24:40 through 41 is about the second coming and has nothing to do with the rapture. Rapture is elsewhere. However, I have met highly educated people who thought rapture was a valid interpretation for this passage, as I had before, and who were unwilling to accept the conclusions I've shared in this video. At any rate, this is my story for how I came to doubt pre-tribulation rapture. I glorify God for answering my prayer to understand Luke 17:37. Actually, even my Twitter handle I named after this because I just want to be able to tell this story. This answer to prayer spurred a new question and a new search. Pre-tribulation rapture isn't found in Matthew 24 or Luke 17. If it exists, where is it? And that is a subject of another video, which I hope you'll watch next. Thank you and God bless you.